Imam Shadeed.
Thank you. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Thank you guys for coming out this morning, and hopefully what we're going to share this morning will be of some benefit to us all, inshallah. And although I'm speaking to the women, I'm sure that the husbands would benefit from this greatly. All right? This is something that we're all going to benefit from, being that. So the topic that I'm going to touch on is called the 10 Commandments of Marriage. All right? This was a topic that I had touched on last summer. I did the 10 marriage commandments, but it was more directed towards the men. Things that men should do and shouldn't do to make their marital life a lot better. So it's only right that I flip that and kind of direct it towards the women this time. So if there are any men at home that are, have the ability to listen, hopefully this will help, inshallah. All right, so we're going to start from 10 and we're going to work our way down to 1. All right, so just bear with me as we get through the material. If you guys have any objections, which I'm sure you might have, and that's okay. If you have any objections or you have anything you want to contribute, I would say just kind of jump in. I don't want to make a debate about anything, so if I say something that you disagree with, it's fine for you to just say, I don't agree with that, and that's cool. We're adults, and sometimes I don't agree with myself. Sometimes I say something, I go back and I listen to it, and I say, I could have said that a little different. Or I change my opinion on something based upon some new information that has reached me. So, I mean, who am I to impose on anybody to agree with something that I said? So, we're going to start with number 10. 10 rules, 10 commandments of marriage for women. Number 10, knowledge is power, but respect is character. Anna Karina said that respect was invented to cover the empty space where love should be. I'll say that again. Respect was invented to cover the place where love should be. Meaning, love might not always be there, but respect should always be there. All right? Love is an emotion, right, that resides in the heart, right here. And like every emotion that the heart is responsible for, it fluctuates from time to time. Am I right? There are times when you're married and you feel like, I don't love this person. There's times when, as I said before, you feel like throwing your husband out the window and then catching him before he hit the ground. Right? We have the ability to do that to people, right? We're men, all right? We function differently, we think differently, we approach things in life differently. Women, you're from Venus, you see things differently, your approach to life is different, and sometimes it clashes. I get it. But love is an emotion. The Arabic word for heart is qalb. And the Arabic word for heart being qalb. Qalb also is an Arabic word. It could be a verb, qalaba, which means to turn. So the heart constantly turns. The heart is constantly fluctuating from point to point, which is why we always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us stability in our heart, thabat, in our hearts, to make our heart firm on His religion, because we know that the heart constantly fluctuates from one stage to another, from one state to another, all right? And sometimes husbands catch their wives when their hearts are not in a loving place, and we unfortunately get a different experience, right? So love is an emotion that resides in the heart, and just like every emotion in the heart, it fluctuates from time to time, circumstance to circumstance. Love is not always going to remain the same, and I think men need to understand that more than women do. Love is not, it's an emotion. And so there's no control, there's nothing finite about emotions, right? Men tell women all the time, get over it. It's just like, no, you don't just get over a jealousy, you don't get over an emotion. That is something we work through, but we don't get over it, you understand? All right, so it's an emotion. There's no way to control it, all right? The point is not to let it control you. That's the point. All right? So love is not always going to remain the same, and therefore, it's going to fluctuate from time to time and from circumstance to circumstance. And so, in the absence of love, respect should always be the balance. The balancing agent should always be respect. All right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِن كَرِهْتُمُوهُنَّ فَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. That perhaps, talking to the men, that perhaps you may hate a thing, and then Allah has put an abundance of good in it. Notice Allah mentioned hate in this ayah is in reference to husband and wife. There are times when a husband doesn't like his wife. Allah says it right here. Perhaps you may dislike something about her. All right? So that means that sometimes there's going to be not a complete loss, but an absence of love in that very moment. All right? Overall, you love the person overall, but love for that person in that particular moment or in that particular circumstance is decreased, dramatically. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us here that despite the decrease in love, you should still see good in the person. That perhaps you may hate a thing, and Allah has put an abundance of good in it. That don't judge the whole person based upon how you feel in that moment. There's still your husband, there's still a lot of good in the individual. So love is not the only quality as well. As you look from the ayah, Allah says that if you hate a thing, the opposite of hate is love. If you dislike a thing, then perhaps Allah has placed an abundance of good in that thing. Meaning, if a man dislikes his wife in that moment, there are other qualities about her that he does like. And that means that love is not the only agent that sustains a marriage. As a matter of fact, love doesn't actually sustain a marriage. The marriage sustains love. Love does not sustain the marriage. All right? So love is not the only quality that sustains a marriage or a relationship, to the point that in the absence of love, the two are total strangers and have nothing to hold them together. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said to a man who wanted to divorce his wife, he said, Wayhak, alam tubna al-bayt illa ala hub. He said, woe be to you. Is a house built on nothing but love? You divorcing her because you don't love her anymore. Umar said, is a house built on nothing but love? Meaning, are there other things that keep a relationship together other than love? Showing you that love is not the only component that keeps, meaning that sometimes the love is not there. As a brother said to me yesterday, he said, I can tell when my wife is angry with me because the food doesn't taste like there's love in it. The food is different. Sister Amina. I know who said it. Said the food is different, but that means that he's aware, right? Men are not completely detached. We know. We're not stupid, right? He said that I know when my wife is upset with me because I can taste the food and I can taste there's no love in it, right? So you don't have to like your husband in that moment, but you do have to respect him. You do have to respect him. Even in the event of divorce, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us not to forget the shared experiences that we had with one another, which creates a genuine love and respect for the person, despite the fact that we're no longer a couple. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. And don't forget about the shared experiences through which you built your relationship with this person. You have children with this person. It's amazing to see people who had children together, who were there in the hospital room together, who shared that experience of cutting the umbilical cord, naming the child, and doing everything the whole process. And then because their relationship didn't last, they now use the child to make each other's lives miserable. Sad, man. That child was a shared experience. Is a proof that love did exist at some point. That child is proof. At least in my generation, people have children today for reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with love. But the child is a proof that love did exist at some point. And even though your relationship didn't last, Every time you look at that child should be a reminder of what you did have. And that healthy experience that you took away from that situation, you should be able to offer that to somebody else. But unfortunately, situations don't end up like that. You know? Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to her, I know when you're angry with me, and I know when you're happy with me. Right? Here again, similar to what the brother said about his wife's cooking. We're men, we observe, we see when you're bothered. We know when you're bothered. We know when you're upset. He says to Aisha, I know when you're angry with me, and I know when you're pleased with me. She said, how? He said, because when you're angry with me, you say, Wa Rabbi Ibrahim. When in your conversation, you say, and I swear by the Lord of Ibrahim. And he said, I'm listening and I can hear you didn't mention my name. Okay, you're angry with me. So you're going to mention another man's name? You're going to swear by the Lord of another man? Right. That was her way of showing, I'm upset with you right now. And this is the Prophet ﷺ. So who are we as men to not think that sometimes we're going to get on our wives' nerves? They're going to be upset with us. He said, but when you're happy with me, you say, Wa Rabbi Muhammad. I swear by the Lord of Muhammad when you're talking to someone. That's how I know that you're pleased with me, because I hear my name mentioned. And Aisha turns to him and she says, pay attention. She said, Na'am, walakinni la ahjur illa ismi. She said, yes, but I only boycott your name. Meaning, I'm upset with you, I'm angry with you, but I don't go so far. I still respect you. I still give you your rights. I still cook for you. I still do everything that I am obligated to do for you as your wife. I just don't mention your name because I'm upset with you. I don't like you right now. You guys following me? That respect covers the place where love should be. So in the absence of love, in the absence of liking the person in that moment, you still respect them. I'm never going to disrespect you. I may not like you in this moment. I may not want to talk to you. I may not, want to be intimate with you. I may not want to do these things because I'm not in a space to do them. But I will always respect you. All right? And obviously respect is reciprocal, obviously, if he's extending the same respect. So the scholars explain that the reason that Aisha, chose Prophet Ibrahim's name, there's some wisdom behind that. The reason why Aisha chose Prophet Ibrahim's name, why did she say, I swear by the Lord of Ibrahim? Why did she say, I swear by the Lord of Musa? Or I swear by the Lord of Ismail? Or I swear by the Lord of Isa? She could have chose any other prophet. Why choose Prophet Ibrahim out of all of the prophets and messengers? There's hikmah in that. The scholars explain that the reason why Aisha chose Ibrahim's name out of all of the other prophets and messengers is because she chose someone that the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't feel threatened by. He wouldn't feel jealous by. Prophet Ibrahim's nickname was Abu al-Anbiya, the father of the prophets and messengers. So she chose one of the prophet's names other than her husband's name. Despite the fact of being angry and upset with him, I'm going to choose a name that, although it's not his, but it's not something that would ignite his own jealousy. It's not something that would make him feel, she could have gotten real petty. To not mention his name is petty, but she could have gotten petty, right? By choosing a name of a prophet whereby he would have felt, wow, out of all the prophets and messengers, you chose him. So she was very careful not to choose someone that would ignite the jealousy, because men get jealous too. Any man that tells you that he doesn't get jealous, that means that he don't love you. Because love and jealousy go hand in hand. Jealousy is an emotion that is ignited by the fear of losing something that you love, that you believe is yours. So any man that tells you that he don't get jealous, then that means that he don't really love you. Because if a man really loves you, he's going to get jealous at some point in his life. Right? So Ibrahim is known as the father of the prophets and messengers. So the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't take offense to Aisha mentioning his name instead of his own. Women have to be mindful that, in your moment of indifference, which is the opposite of love, that you don't become disrespectful. Respect is about how you treat someone regardless of how you feel about them personally. You guys follow me? Does anybody take any issue with that? You believe that when you don't like your husband in that moment, you could just be disrespectful? No. You're not justified in doing that. All right? Respect covers the place where love should be. So in the absence of love, you cover that space with respect. I'm still going to respect you. I'm just not feeling you right now. All right? And at least with the respect, we know that the loss of love in that moment is temporary, because I see that you still respect me. But the moment the respect goes, for many men, the relationship goes. I know for me anyway. The moment you don't respect me, we don't have a relationship, because men invest a lot of time and energy into building up who they believe they are in order to elicit the respect from the world that they engage. And to go into a home with a woman that you spend your life with and find that she has zero respect for you, that means that you don't see me as I see myself. All right? Number nine from the 10 marriage commandments is to remember that appreciation is the highest form of praise. You want to praise your husband? You want to make your husband feel good? Appreciate him. That's the highest form of praise. And we can learn a lot from our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with respect to one another. You want to look at how we should engage one another. As I say all the time, our relationship with one another as human beings is just an extension of our relationship with God. And through our interaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can learn a lot of how we should engage the people that mean the most to us. Human behavior is patternized along the lines of ingratitude. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made gratitude in Islam an act of worship, considering that as human beings we are naturally ungrateful. We are naturally ungrateful, except those whom Allah has mercy on. But it's a natural quality of human beings to be ungrateful, to be unappreciative. And so therefore Islam has made gratitude a form of worship, an act of worship, that is not only meritorious between your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it also meritorious socially as it relates to your relationship with other human beings. Allah tells us that gratitude is one of the ways through which He will increase whatever He has given us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, that if you show gratitude to me, I will give you more. That's what your Lord said. The same thing works with your husband. The more gratitude you show him, the more he will do. I promise you that. Let me tell you why. Because women have to remember that men, we have been socially, cultured as men to believe that our agency lies in our ability to provide services. So that means the bulk of who we believe we are is directly related to the services that we provide to our families. And to be unappreciative of that means to be unappreciative, meaning that you don't see him as a man, period. And women also have to remember that they have a predisposition to be ungrateful. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that if a man was to spend his whole entire life, لو أحسنت إلى إحداهن الدهر, if you spent your entire life doing nothing but right by your woman, ثم رأت منك ما يقرأ ما تقرأ, and then she sees one thing from you that she dislikes, she says what? ما رأيت منك خيرا, you ain't never done nothing for me. Completely dismissive. I never done nothing for you? Nothing? Oh, you think because you pay the rent you doing something? Yeah. What? Yeah, I do. Actually. You think because you changed my tire, you think that now I'm supposed to? No, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what that means. You didn't get the memo? We're men. We pride ourselves on the services that we can offer to you. You understand? And to have someone just completely overlook that, completely dismiss that, it dismisses us. It's like you write us in pencil and then you erase us. The Prophet ﷺ's words were golden. So you have to remind yourself as a woman that you are predisposed to being ungrateful. It's just part of your character flaw. We all have them. We all have character flaws. And I'm sure that every woman sitting here right now, including those who are too young to even be married, have said to their fathers or said to their husbands or have thought about it that, oh, you think you did this because, or you think you're doing something because you did X, Y, Z. You think because you pick me up from school every day, you think that you're not my father, or you're not doing this, or it's like, yeah, I pick you up from school every day. Why don't I get any cool points for that? You think you're supposed to be rewarded for doing what you're supposed to do? Yes. Doesn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward me for every piece of food that I put in your mouth? Yes. Why do women say that? Oh, you're supposed to be rewarded for doing what you're supposed to do? Yes. Don't I get punished for doing what I'm not supposed to do? Okay then. Use the same concept. The Prophet ﷺ said about intimacy. He said that وَفِي بِضْعِكُمْ حَسَنًا صَدَقَةً. He said even in the intimate relations between husband and wife, there's a sadaqah. Charity. One of the Sahaba said, "O Messenger of Allah, you telling me that when a man goes to his wife in an intimate fashion, he gets a reward?" Sound familiar? You think I'm supposed to reward you for what you're supposed to do? Yes. The Sahabi said, "O Messenger of Allah, are you saying that when a man goes to his wife in an intimate fashion, that he gets a reward?" The Prophet ﷺ said, "Don't you see if he was to put it in a place that was haram, he would get sin? Then yes, he gets a reward." So stop asking this question, oh, you think I'm supposed to reward you for doing what you're supposed to do? Yes. That's part of what keeps me doing what I'm doing. You guys follow me? You want a man to do more. What did Allah say? That if you show great gratitude to me, I will give you more. You want your husband to do more? Appreciate the little bit that he does do. Give him some credit. Stop wanting him to move mountains before you give him credit. It's like, well, you picked the kids up from school. Great, good job. I'm happy you did that. It's like, okay, but what do you want me to move a mountain before you give me some credit? Give me credit, even for the little things that I do. One of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's names is Ash-Shakur. Allah is appreciative. Are we not supposed to be incorporating Allah's qualities and characteristics in our own lives? Why or else are we studying the names and attributes of Allah, if not to incorporate it in our own character? Allah loves to see the traces of His blessings on His servant. So if you learn the name of Allah, that's a blessing. Now incorporate it in your character. One of Allah's names is Ash-Shakur. He's appreciative, even of the smallest little thing. Didn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran, وَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى? And whoever does a mustard seed of good will be compensated for it. You will see it. Not with us. No, you got to move a mountain before I recognize any good you do. It's just like, really? You want your husband to do more? Appreciate the little bit that he does. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if you show me gratitude, I will give you more. Men function the same exact way. I trust you. I tell you. If you say to your husband right now, "Ben, I know I don't appreciate you as much as I know I don't tell you that I appreciate you as much, but I see you. I see what you're doing. I see that you take care of our family. I see the way that you work hard and you work diligently. I see you. I just want you to know that." Man, he gonna go out, he might go do something, crazy because he's so happy, elated to hear those words. You understand? He's extremely happy because you just validated his agency, his service. That's how we define ourselves. We define ourselves by way, which is why when a man feels like he's not doing right by his family, he feels horrible. He feels less than a man because we derive our validation of self based upon the agency based upon the service that we provide. All right? So it's dismissive, right? And will cause the man to withdraw his acts of service. When you say to a man, "Oh, you think you're doing something because you pay the rent, or you pay the mortgage, or you pay the car insurance, so what? I pay this, I do this." And at that moment, I'm telling you as a man, we feel like, well, you know what? Then just pay everything. I ain't paying nothing. Because you don't value the little bit that I do. You just dismiss the little bit that I do. And if you're not going to appreciate the little bit I do, then I might as well just not do it at all. I can guarantee you any man who has refused to pay a bill, refused to be responsible with this or that, a lot of it has to do with feeling underappreciated. Guaranteed. A lot of it has to do with feeling unappreciated. Anybody, when you feel like the person doesn't appreciate what you're offering, then you just withdraw completely. Because why am I going to keep offering if you don't appreciate it? All right? Or he'll continue to offer, but he does so reluctantly. And he does so and he resents you for it. Because I know I'm not going to stop paying the bill, but although I'm paying the bill and I know you don't appreciate it, I know you're not grateful for it, I resent you as a result of that. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, something like I just find it amazing. That's interesting, and I hear what you're saying, and I get it. But with women, I find that we are often unappreciated, but we continue to do. Motherhood and wifehood is a very unthankful job. A woman's job is never done. Okay, it's always something for the children or the husband's mother or in-laws, and and we definitely are not given the thanks and the appreciation that I think we deserve from our spouses, etc. But I understand what you're saying, and I'm, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking this male ego thing needs to be kind of blown up, type of thing. Is that what you're kind of saying? To blow them up? I understand, because example. I did something the other day, and somebody told me, "Well, you're going to say thank you," and I'm like, "Okay, thank you." But then I said to myself, "Well, I did this, and you say thank you to me." But I didn't say that. I said it here. I didn't say it out loud because it would start a fight.
Okay, so.
But it was just a matter if you took away a little piece of paper that left there, well, say thank you. And I'm like, okay, but thank you. It wasn't really that big of a deal. Did I really have to say thank you for you taking that little piece of paper, throwing it in the trash? I mean, do I really have to acknowledge that when, you didn't say thank you for this? But I'm not making, you don't have to say thank you because I'm just doing it because, I understand it's lopsided.
No, I get your point. I get your point. But actually, I'm getting ready to address that. And that is speaking gratitude into the culture of your relationship. It seems like that's not part of the culture in your marriage. And I think when your husband says, well, you could have said thank you, in that moment, that was a teaching moment. That, okay, if I'm going to say thank you for this, and you don't have to actually express it. You could have said, well, you know what? I'm sorry I didn't say thank you. And then kind of say it more in hopes that he would catch on to it and start to reciprocate the same thing until it becomes a culture. So if a husband says to his wife, well, you could have said thank you, don't use that as an opportunity to challenge and say, well, I do this, and you don't say thank you to me. Take it as an opportunity to say, there's a deficiency in the culture of our relationship, meaning thank yous are not being given enough in our culture. Maybe I need to start saying it more, and maybe he'll catch on and he'll reciprocate the same thing. And if not, then it calls for a conversation. Hey, I noticed that I say thank you to you a lot, and I noticed that you don't necessarily reciprocate that. So why don't we do this? Why don't we start making that a part of the culture of our marriage, that we say thank you, please? Expressions of gratitude within our culture, even for the smallest things, until it becomes a norm. You know what I mean? It's a teaching moment, not a moment for you to challenge and say, well, because in that moment, you're both going to lose because his ego going to kick in. Well, I got to say thank you to you for everything. No, you don't have to say thank you, but at times I would want it. But that's not the moment to have that conversation because now it looks like a tit for tat. You follow me?
Yeah, I reserve.
You know what I mean? Like it's not. That's not the moment for it. And then we want to create a culture of appreciation in our marriages, and that's actually the next point that I was going to get to. And here again, it feels forced when a man has to do it, even though he doesn't want to. It feels forced, and he's believing that it's not being received with appreciation and acknowledgement of the sacrifices that he made to do it. So we need to learn how to speak the language of gratitude into the culture of our relationship. Every relationship has a culture. Every marriage has a culture. Things that are norms that go on within the construct of that particular marriage. That is a culture that goes on in the marriage. Some marriages have a culture of hilarity. Everything is, a joke. And both of them, find, humor in things. Sometimes me and my wife are at the airport and we're just looking at everybody walk by and we're making fun of everybody. That's part of the culture. We make fun of our own children. You know, that's part of the culture in our marriage. You know what I mean? We clown our own children. That might not go on in somebody else's marriage, but that's part of the culture in our marriage. So every marriage has a culture that is replete with, you know, language, that is replete with, you know, because language creates culture, all right? And create a culture of gratitude, or create a culture of, speak gratitude into the culture of your relationship. Every relationship has a culture replete with language and behaviors that are familiar to those that are involved in the relationship. Learn the language of gratitude, such as thank you, I appreciate you, and know that our relationship with one another is just an extension of our relationship with Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La yashkur nas min la yashkurillah min la yashkur nas." He who does not thank the people has not thanked Allah. So essentially saying thank you to your husband, appreciating your husband, is an extension of your gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and vice versa for the husband. But this is about the men, not the women. All right? Everyone follow me on that? You want him to do more? Show more appreciation for what he's doing. Number 8, create a closeness with your spouse by putting distance between you and him. It sounds like an oxymoron because people, women, many times, often misconstrue closeness for love. You oftentimes think in your world as a woman that us being close together means that he loves me. But for men, we kind of, that's very uncomfortable for some men. We don't like being around you all the time. Just like you don't like being around us all the time. But don't misconstrue closeness for love. And understand that sometimes absence makes the heart grow fonder. Absence makes the hearts grow fonder. What do I mean by that? That's actually a quote, not my statement. Very, very famous quote. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. What do I mean by that? And on the flip side of that, familiarity breeds contempt. Being around someone all the time, they start to get on your nerve, they start to work you, they start to get underneath your skin, start to bother. Why does that happen? Why does absence make the heart grow fonder? And why does familiarity breed contempt? When the Prophet ﷺ boycotted his wives, I'm going to come back to that point. When the Prophet ﷺ boycotted his wives, right? He boycotted his wives for a total month. Stayed away from them, did not go to their homes, did not sleep with them. He slept in a little room in the masjid, right? He was angry, he was upset with them. All right, and he boycotted them for a total of 29 days. As we know, the lunar months are between 29 and 30 days. He boycotted his wives for 29 days, a total of 29 days. Can you imagine your husband being gone from you for 29 days? Some of you might say, thank you, alhamdulillah, I needed that. But after some time, it starts to take a toll on you. Obviously, you got married for a reason. You know what I mean? It starts to take a toll on you. All right? But 29 days is a long time. 4 weeks. That's a long time, man. And when he began resuming his nights between his wives, he started with Aisha. He walked into Aisha's home, and Aisha said to him, I thought you were boycotting us for a whole month. He took an oath that he was going to boycott them for a month. He said, I did. This month just so happened to be 29 days. And Aisha says, Inni la'a'lam fa'a'uddaha yawman yawman. She said, I know it was 29 days. I was counting every single day. I was counting every single day. Meaning, she knows she's been counting the days one by one because distance, makes the heart grow fonder. Causing her to love him and desire him more. The more, and it's weird how that dynamic plays out. The more the person is around you, you like get away from me, you start to get on my nerve. And the more that the person is away from you, the more you want them closer to you. If we can learn how to master that, we can learn how to get a better relationship with our husbands. All right? Distance typically decreases the emotional intensity. That's why when being away from somebody, you start to miss them. And when they're in your space, it's intensified. The emotion starts to intensify because you're in the same space. Here again, familiarity breeding contempt. The person is around you all the time. There was a movie that was made by Will Smith. What was that movie? Where he was like the superhero, and every time he kept coming closer to his sister, they would...
Hancock, yeah.
Hancock, right. That movie kind of played out this whole concept. The closer he got to his sister, the more damage it was causing. And she said the best thing for us was to be separated. The more distance that we have, the more I can actually enjoy my life. You follow me? And that's exactly how this human emotion plays out. The closer we are, the longer we are closer to each other, then the emotion starts to intensify. We start to get tired of being around each other. We start to nitpick, simply because we want distance. We nitpick with one another because we're basically telling you, back off of me. Why'd you do that? Or why you say that? It's like you seem like you don't want to be around me. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And one of you have to come to that realization to say, well, I'm going to run out for some groceries. Or I'm going to run out and go to the gym real quick. I'm going to go, to go get me some coffee or whatever the case may be. You just need that little separation. It doesn't have to be limited by time, right? But it's limited by space. Even if it means going in another room. Even if it means going downstairs and you're upstairs. Sometimes you can be downstairs and you text your wife upstairs, what you doing, honey? And we're not in the same room. But we're in the same house, but we're not in the same space. You understand? And then she's done watching her show or done doing what she does. She's like, babe, can you come upstairs? Now you want me to be around you? Men, we don't understand that. We like, now you want me to be around you? Yeah, I want you to be around. And vice versa with men. So the moment we can master that, I think that we can get a better relationship. Distance typically decreases emotional intensity, as it is contrary to the involved and intimate perspective typical of emotions. This is why we are encouraged to leave the area and the environment of conflict. Because when we are in conflict with people, the more you are in the same room with that person, the emotions are going to intensify. Islamically, what did the Prophet ﷺ say when you get into a space or get into an argument with someone? That you should make wudu. You should, the feeling doesn't go away after you make wudu, then you should lay down. Sit down. If it doesn't go away, you should lay down. You can pray 2 raka'ah or remove yourself from that space. Because the longer you stay in that space, the more the emotion is going to intensify. You follow me? In the hadith where Fatima, the daughter of the Prophet ﷺ, she got into an argument with Ali. And what did Ali do? He left the house and went to the masjid. And the Prophet ﷺ walked into the house and he said, where's your husband? She said, kana baynana shay. There was an argument between us, and he left. And so sometimes men leave, not because we want to leave you. Sometimes a man is trying to walk out the door, a woman stop him. Where do you think you going? I'm trying to get away from you, woman. Like you it's like, what you mean, where am I going? If we stay in the same space, one of us is going to get hurt. One of us is going to get hurt. I'm leaving. I'm not leaving you. Because in that moment, the emotion is intensified. Where do you think you're going? You think you're just going to walk out of here? We're not done with this conversation. It's like, for right now we are. Because what's going to happen if we continue? Your emotions are on 100 right now. You are this close from putting your hands on me physically. And I am this close from defending myself physically. Let's not escalate that. Follow the Islamic protocol. Separate yourself from the space to give the emotions an opportunity to decline. Otherwise, if you're still in the same space, shaitan, and then you got to keep in mind, shaitan is there. Shaitan is there inciting. Go for it. Do it. I dare you. You hear what he said? You hear what she said? You going to let them say that? Inciting you to do more. And so we have to know when to call it quits. The Prophet ﷺ saw 2 men arguing, and he said, "Inni la a'lamu kalimatan law qalaha la dhahaba ma wajad." That I know a statement. If one of them were to say it, it would remove what they are experiencing of anger and animosity. If they were to say, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim," And when husband and wife are arguing, that's the last thing that we're thinking about. A'udhu billahi minash shaitan. We're saying, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. You're going to put your hands on me? We're saying it, but it's not being effective because the emotion has override. It's overriding the power of A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem at that moment.
How could you develop some of the communication skills when that particular sort of situation happens, to the point whereby that you have two individuals with two different emotions? So in other words, basically when you said earlier about being in the culture of the marriage, when you come back together, whereby two people are still feeling differently, what is the culture that you would develop in the marriage to be able to acknowledge that we both have had different emotions, so when we calm down, when do you come to a point whereby that you're actually communicating? Because other than that, if it's not resolved, it's still going to come up again. So where are the tools to be able to develop the culture to be able to communicate?
So we're talking about conflict resolution. How do we resolve that conflict? Because when I say him leaving the home, that's only temporary. That's just to give us an opportunity to let the emotion calm down. Because as long as you're in the space with the person that triggered you, you're going to continue to be triggered. You're not going to get better in that moment. Your emotions are not going to decline if the person who sparked the emotion is still sitting in your face. Not going to happen. You guys have to separate. And then when you both are in a place where you can actually talk it out, then you guys got to create a protocol for yourself that when this happens, this is what we both do. You go in your corner, you go in your corner. You know, we make wudu, make 2 rak'ah, we find an opportunity to kind of reflect and digress, and then come back and apologize, and then, you know, and then we take it from there. But that can only happen when they are in a space where they can develop that. But when they are in a tense situation, it's really hard to think about what the right thing to do is. And in many instances for men, especially men who do not like to get physical with their women, our go-to is to just leave. And it doesn't mean that we're leaving because we want to leave you. It means that we are leaving because we understand that I am the one that triggered that emotion. And if I'm still sitting in your face or still in the house with you, that emotion is not going to decline. I need to remove myself from the situation, let the opportunity, maybe send a text, let's just say, I'm sorry, you know, is it safe for me to come home now? Can we talk it out like at this point and, you know, get to a point where we can actually figure it out? There are increasing numbers of long distance, what are called commuter relationships, involving people who, although challenged by geographical proximity, find these relationships very healthy, meaningful, and fulfilling. Much of the contributing factors to this dynamic is education, money, and most importantly, an increased value that is placed on personal growth and flourishing, meaning they don't rely on one another for validation and acceptance, nor do they require that to be reciprocal in order for them to have closure. In that case, there's a sort of codependency that won't allow people to pursue their own individual growth without the involvement of the other person. So basically what I'm saying is that commuter relationships are on a rise now in our society, where people are developing relationships with people from long distance, and it seems like those relationships are lasting longer than the monogamous relationships where husband and wife are in the home with each other all the time. And the contributing factor to that, one of the contributing factors to that meaning that long distance relationships are lasting longer, is because the people in long distance relationships do not require validation from the other person. They don't have a codependency. Obviously, if you're having a long distance relationship with someone, that means that you're living your life, you're doing you, going to work, going to school, and then you make time for the person, you know, whether through text message, through Skype, through, you know, online, you know, apps that we use to connect with people, FaceTime, and that's good for you. And he, vice versa, is doing the same exact thing, meaning that you are not codependent on one another for validation or substantiation. You follow me? Whereas people who lived in the home with each other, it's almost like a codependency. I'm not letting you, where are you going? No, so you're not spending any time with me? You shame your husband for going to the gym, shame your husband for wanting to go hang out with his friends, shame your husband for wanting to go do this or do that, simply because you are codependent on his presence. His presence provides you with the validation that you need, and that's unfair. not realizing that men need that space, that time away. They need that. We've been conditioned as children, as boys, which is why we create men's clubs. We create the man cave. Why do you think we have all of these things? Because we need that space. We need that space. Being around you all the time is not allowing us to be our authentic self. Because now we got to go do things with you that we really don't want to do, but we really don't want to say no to you because we know how it's going to upset you. Some men don't like going grocery shopping. They wish you could go grocery shopping by yourself. He's walking with you, but he's on his phone. He'd rather be doing something else except, do you think we should get this chicken? How should I know? What about this steak? You think we should get this steak? It's like, you're the cook. I don't know anything about steak. What do you want? So we nod our head in approval. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Meanwhile, we don't know the first thing about what a good steak looks like. All we know is you cook it and we taste it, and that's it. But the point that I'm making is that we would much rather do something else, but we are shamed into agreeing to things, to be around you, and we forsake the things that we like to do, to give us the distance that we need to miss you. So long-term intimacy in a healthy marriage or relationship requires each partner to maintain their own sense of self-worth and personal autonomy, meaning you have to be within and without at the same time. You want your relationship with your husband to work, you cannot derive your validation from his presence. Meaning you cannot build your sense of self-worth off of his presence. You have to do that on your own. You guys follow me? You have to do that on your own. And learning how to be autonomous and work on your own personal growth, whether it's to go to school, whether it's to do something that you like doing, and it doesn't involve him. It doesn't have to involve him. It's something that you could share with him, something you can offer him if he wants to do it, and always give him an out. Don't say, oh, so you don't want, oh, okay, all right. And he's like, that's a passive-aggressively way of shaming him into doing something he doesn't want. You can say, hey, honey, I'm going to the grocery store. You want to go? That gives us an opportunity to say no. Well, babe, why don't you just go? I'm going to stay here and finish the game, or I'm going to stay here and do this. All right, cool. But when you say, babe, you got the keys? Come on, let's go. And it's just like, yeah, but I didn't want to go. You're leaving me no out. You're forcing my hand. When in fact, that little bit of time that you take, that 45 minutes, an hour that you take to go grocery shopping, y'all both needed that. You follow me? Y'all both needed that time away, that small little space. Needed that. All right? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you say the same thing to the brothers last night? Meaning that sisters need your space? I'm just saying. What you're saying is just the opposite. I say, I don't want to go. Go along.
Right.
Or I say, well, you want me to go shopping? I say, no, I don't need you to go shopping with me. I'm good. You
right.
can stay home. So I'm the one trying to get away.
You trying to get away. The one that's trying to get away,
I'm the one
right?
trying to get away. So I'm like, you know what I mean? Go somewhere with me. I don't want to go. Can I just stay home?
Right.
I need some air. So it's not just the men.
It's not just the men. No, you're right. Sometimes it's the women. Sometimes men are just like up underneath you. It's just like, go do something.
So that's what I'm asking. Did you say that to them last night? Because some of them.
No, I didn't.
You see? Yeah, they needed to hear it too. That sometimes your wife needs space, from you.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. Honey, where you going? I'm just going to the bathroom. Honey, where you going? I'm going to the kitchen.
So, she's basically saying, for those of you listening online, that sometimes it's the woman that's trying to get away from her husband. He's always the one that is underneath her. And it's like, listen, I need a moment. Like, go play football with the kids. Go outside and do something and give me some space. And it doesn't have to be the amount of time. Sometimes it can be just a quick 30 minutes. Sometimes in the morning I'll get up, we're talking or whatever, and then I'll run out, go get me some coffee. All right, it's like, you want me to ride? No. Just go get my coffee. And then I sit in my car and I drink my coffee for a moment. When I'm done, keep in mind that some of us are introverts. I'm an introvert. I don't like people. I don't like being around people. Period. Sometimes it's forced. And I know some of the brothers can sense it. Sometimes I'm within and without at the same time. I'm nodding my head like, yeah, for real, subhanAllah, but I'm somewhere else. I'm somewhere else, and I just really wish you would stop talking to me. Literally, you know what I mean? And it's not you, it's me. I just don't feel like talking right now. I don't feel like I need to withdraw, regain, recharge, and then I'm good. I can come back and I can, you know what I mean? But if I'm never given that space to recharge, it becomes a problem for you. I start to get agitated. I start to complain about every little thing. And, you know, and it's like I become toxic because I haven't had a time to recharge. You know, so, you know, we have to keep in mind that some people are introverted. And there's some spouses, some women who are extroverts. They're social butterfly. They love talking, all up in your space. And the man, we like, come on, like, back up a little bit. Like, give me some space, man. And vice versa with the women. So we also have to keep that in mind. The nuances that make your spouse who they are. And there has to be respect for that. All right? But what I'm talking about is each person maintaining their autonomy within their marriage. We cannot be codependent on one another for the validation that we believe we need. So there needs to be limited personal space. Because if you give a man too much space, he might go do something haram. So limited personal, LBS. I'm going to give you your LBS. I'm going to give you your limited personal space. You got 30 minutes, 45 minutes, go, you know, recharge, do what you need to do. All right, but you don't want to give him too much space, you know. All right, so absence diminishes mediocre passion and increases great ones as the wind extinguishes candles and fans fires. This is a quote. Absence diminishes mediocre passions and increases great ones as the wind extinguishes candles and fans fires. Our relationships have to get to a point where its satisfaction is derived from calmness rather than excitement. I'm around you because I just want peace, not around you because I need to be on a high all the time. Those are younger relationships. Older relationships, we want that calmness and that peace. I want you to be my peace, and I want to be your peace. You follow me? All right? And only then will we enjoy being around each other. Being around each other will only happen when I'm around you, I'm at peace, I'm calm. Not when I'm around you, my emotions are set aflame. All right? Number 7, listen to understand, not to respond. Listen to your husband to understand him, not to create a response. Men, much like women, want to know that they have been heard and understood. Men are from Mars, without a doubt. And although men being from Mars reinforces the stereotype that we are somehow genetically deficient and unable to communicate what we need from our women, and can be very dismissive. At times, as men, we don't always choose the best words, you know, to express what we need to express in that moment, especially if you're dealing with someone whose vocabulary is not that broad. So sometimes we choose what is easy for us in that moment, the words that are easy. We grab from this category of words that just helps us to easily express what we want to express in that moment without consideration for how those words are going to affect you. Women, a lot of times you are very literal, so each and every word is kind of just hitting you, and you're like, yeah, you ain't have to say it like that, you know. But men, we don't really think about all of the dynamics that go into communication. We just say what we need to say in that moment without consideration for everything. But it is imperative that women acknowledge our sentiment, even if they don't necessarily agree with it. All right? Understanding someone's perspective and agreeing with it has nothing to do with one another. I can understand you, I heard you, I hear you loud and clear. You know, I hear you. When my wife says that to me, I don't care what the outcome of the conversation is. I can walk away knowing I have been heard. My wife can say to me, I heard you, I got you. I heard you loud and clear. I walk away feeling like, yes, okay. Whether that is followed up with the action that I wanted or not, I just wanted to be heard in that moment. And a lot of men, unfortunately, in these relationships with women, they're not heard. Many of them don't know how to articulate their needs. Having a need is one thing. Being able to articulate that need to someone to get that need met is a completely different journey. Articulation is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that not everybody has. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ar-Rahman خلق الإنسان وعلمه البيان. Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, خلق الإنسان, who created the human being, علمه البيان, and taught him articulation. That's a blessing from Allah, to be able to articulate what you need to someone and to have that someone meet your request so that you are satisfied. That is a process. Not everybody knows how to do that. All right, think about someone who has experienced it. This is why, going back to dealing with children, I'm a teacher, Sister Amina, you're a teacher, and you know as well, when you're dealing with children, some of the most violent children in school are children who are not necessarily inherently violent, they just don't know how to express themselves. It's rooted in frustration, right? You have a child, for example, who bites. You know, you go to preschool or even less than that, all right? Children who bite. They're biting kids in the classroom, not because they are inherently violent. And unfortunately, you'll have administrators, oh, we need to do something with this kid because he's biting the other children. The reason why he's doing that or she's doing that is because they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to say, stop, don't do that. So they reach the first go-to is to bite you. Meanwhile, the administrators in the classroom are citing the child as being problematic and looking to take action rather than understanding that there is a deeper issue there. You guys follow me? And it's sad that we have some of the dumbest teachers in the world administrating our schools. That's a fact. It's like you went to school to get a degree. God forbid in an Islamic school it's just some random Muslim we pulled out of the masjid and now they're teaching our children in the school. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. These children have real needs that have to be met. And disciplining them and, citing them for infractions and things like that is not the solution. We have these zero tolerance policies. That's the problem. We need to have tolerance. Zero tolerance means he does one infraction that goes against the school policy and he's out the school to go where? To end up in jail. School to prison pipeline. That's how it works. The problem is that we need tolerance. We need more understanding. These children, they have deeper issues than just what we see on the surface. So my point is that when you're talking about someone who is inherently violent, a lot of times it has to do with the ability the lack of ability to articulate. Articulation, the ability to get your point across in a manner where you can get your needs met is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that not every man has in his relationship. And I feel sorry. Sometimes when I used to do counseling, brothers would come in and I'm listening to him. And because I'm a man, I understand what he means. She's sitting there combating everything that he's saying, trying to make him look like he's some type of invalid or some type of inadequate individual. But I can hear his pain. He doesn't know how to articulate it, but I can sift through his words and hear what he's trying to say. And unfortunately, the woman that he lives with can't even read, can't even see past his words to understand what he's trying to say. And I'm saying, like, sis, the brother's trying to tell you that this is he should have just said that. Well, damn it, if he could have just said that, he would have. Obviously, he doesn't know how to articulate. Everybody doesn't know how to articulate. So can you imagine what a man would feel being in a relationship with a woman who only acknowledges his sentiment when she agrees with it? We would be invalids in relationships. You have many men who have no voice in their marriage because they simply don't know how to articulate. It's like a person sitting in jail for a petty crime, misdemeanor, simply because he cannot post bail. His bail is $300. He don't even have $300. So he sits in jail with murderers, killers, kingpins, simply because he does not have $300. So a man is similarly in the same situation in a marriage with a woman. His needs are not getting met. He's frustrated. He becomes verbally violent and dismissive and disrespectful simply because he is not being heard. He doesn't know how to articulate himself. All right? So, and the fact of the matter is that some women, you guys are excellent runners. You run circles around your men, right? Within the confines of your marriage, and the poor guy has no one to turn to because he has been shamed his entire life into believing that asking for help makes him look weak. So you have many men who will not come to marriage counseling, will not go to another man and ask for help because he has been shamed his entire life as a man into believing that to ask another man for help means that you are weak or somehow inadequate. That's how we have been trained. So when you do marriage counseling, you have all of these women flocking to marriage counseling because women are very transparent. They don't really care. They just want to solve the problem. But for men, there are a lot of hurdles that we have to get over before we can step into a counselor's office and really get some help. And the main hurdle is getting over the fact that asking another man for help does not mean that I'm weak. That's a hurdle that has been put in our path as men. We have been shamed into believing that to ask someone for help means that you are somehow inadequate or weak. Am I lying? That's a problem. That's a problem in our communities, unfortunately. And, we need to fix that. These are lies that have been told to us. Lies that have been told to us, unfortunately. Can you focus? Make sure the light actually controls. And so the Prophet ﷺ, I want to go back to an incident that happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ where we can see this play out, right? Give me 1 second. Technology is good and bad at the same time. Okay, so we're talking about women running circles around their men simply because he doesn't know how to articulate himself, doesn't know how to get the help that he needs. During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, towards his last days when he was sick, right? And he couldn't stand for the prayer. In one incident, he came out and he was sitting down leading the salah. And another incident, he told Aisha radiallahu anha to go tell her father Abu Bakr to lead the salah. This is a conversation between a husband and a wife, right? The Prophet ﷺ instructs Aisha, go tell your father Abu Bakr to lead the salah. Aisha says to the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr cries a lot. إِنَّهُ أَشَدُّ بُكَاءٍ وَلَا يَسْمَعُ النَّاسِ الْقُرْآنِ. That he cries a lot when he leads the salah. And people can't hear the Quran being recited. Let Umar lead the salah. The Prophet ﷺ looked at Aisha and he said, go tell Abu Bakr I said lead the salah. So she goes out and she sees Hafsa, her co-wife, coming by, and she says to Hafsa, go tell the Prophet ﷺ to let Umar lead the salah and not Abu Bakr. And so when Hafsa, not knowing that the Prophet and Aisha already had that conversation, Hafsa goes to the Prophet and says, can you just let Umar lead the salat? The Prophet says, SubhanAllah, you women are like the women of Yusuf. Go tell Abu Bakr I said lead the salat. She didn't even know why she got screamed on, but she didn't realize the Prophet had already had that conversation previously with, and what he meant by the women of Yusuf was during the situation of Yusuf, the women had plotted to try to get Yusuf to seduce the woman, right? And so he's talking about sometimes when women get together, they empower the man, unfortunately, all right? Which is going to be one of my issues that we deal with here. And that is, when women get together, they click up her friends or whatever the case may be, and then they overpower the man into doing something. And so right here in this moment, we can clearly see how things play out in many marriages. The husband is expressing his opinion on an issue or about something, and it is met with a logical response from his wife, which sometimes comes off as dismissive. She's not like communicating with him to try to get him to see it from another angle. It's just completely dismissive of what he said, and he's supposed to now just somehow go with her logic because her logic makes more sense. All right, the Prophet ﷺ, Aisha didn't give him an opportunity to explain why. Him telling Abu Bakr to lead the salat was not just because he didn't feel like leading the salat and let Abu Bakr do it. It was deeper than that. He was telling Aisha to let Abu Bakr lead the salat because that was his small little way of suggesting that Abu Bakr was going to be the Khalifa after his death. It was bigger than him just leading the salat. Aisha saw it as, oh, you just want him to lead the salat. Choose Umar to lead the salat. It wasn't about that. Aisha saw it from one angle. The Prophet ﷺ saw it from another angle. So Aisha was completely or totally disregarding the deeper implication behind the Prophet ﷺ's request, which is what happens sometimes with men in their marriages. Sometimes we say something or we take a position on something for things that are deeper. We might say to our wives, I'm not really comfortable with you going out after dark to go to the store. Oh, you trying to stop me? I'm a free woman. I'm liberated from these cultural norms, and you trying to stop me from going out, and I was going out before I met you, and now you trying to stop. It's like, girl, please. I'm not trying to stop you from being this modern woman that you want to be, but there's real danger out there. It's dark outside. You get a flat tire. Something happened to you. I'm responsible for that, not you. The first person you're going to call is me. So rather than saying, well, honey, can you go to the store for me? It's challenged. It's used as an opportunity to say, you're trying to stop me from being this woman. And then you go and you share that, this guy trying to tell me I can't go outside and go to the store at night. Man, this guy is trying to, like your girlfriend, she, just as oblivious as you are. Girl, my ex-husband tried to do that to me. I ain't having it. Ain't no man telling me when I can go outside and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, girl, stop it. Stop with your nonsense. The man is trying to protect you. He is not trying to stop you from being the postmodern woman that you want to be. Liberated from all of these cultural influences. Great, got you. Bask in your greatness. But your protection, your safety is my responsibility. And my, responsibility, I will be accountable before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How does a man look at himself in the mirror? He tells his wife, go ahead to the store at this particular time. Something happens to her, and he has to live with that. So rather than confronting him about his choice, why not say, okay, well, if you don't want me to go to the store, can you go? That stops the argument, because he's either going to say, well, you know what, go ahead. Or he's going to say, yeah, I'll go, and he'll take the money from you and he'll go. But we can't, stop challenging that. Ask him. Do we ever take a time out to ask and say, well, why don't you want me to go to the store at night? And then hear his logic, hear him out. Hear him out. All right? So it's important for us to, to understand, the logic of the man and stop being so dismissive. Number 6, I'm gonna get to 5, and then I'll do it another time because I got you guys for so long. Okay. I wasn't anticipating, young kids being here, but I'll modify my language a little bit so that we understand. Number 6, from the commandments of marriage, things that women can do to make their marriage better, is learning how to leverage your tin. Leverage your tin. What do I mean by that? Intimacy between husband and wife has a ratio between 1 to 10. Sexual intimacy can be from 1 to 10, depending on situation, circumstance, how you feel, what he's deserving of that moment. Leverage your 10. What do I mean by that? Learn how to use your 10 to get what you want. Make sense? You guys are looking at me like, what in the world is he talking about? Okay. Your 10 should be to get what you want from your spouse. When we receive something all the time, we don't always value it. We don't always appreciate it. If the woman is working to give her husband a sexual experience that is at 10 all the time, eventually that 10 is going to turn into a 4. Right. He's going to not value us because I'm getting it all the time. So 10 goes from 10 to 4, 5. Because as human beings, we grow intolerable. So we want a higher high. You know what I mean? We want to go higher. And to go beyond 10 might be to venture into something that is haram. Right? You want to stay within the 1 to 10. All right? But the point that I'm making is that leverage your 10. Sometimes women don't understand how powerful that is. All right? You don't understand how powerful that is. When you're giving 10 all the time, it's going to be depreciated. But when you use 10 at the times when you really need something from him, then it works in your favor. You guys follow me? So let me give you an incident that happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The story of Sulaym, who was the mother of Anas ibn Malik. She married a man by the name of Abu Talha. And they had a few children. They had a son, and that son died. And Abu Talha was out and about. The son died. He was sick in the home. When Sulaym found out that the son was dead, she told, the other children in the home, don't anyone say anything to Abu Talha until I break him the news. Let me tell him that his son is deceased. Because no one could explain that to a man better than the woman that knows him best, and that's his wife. So when Abu Talha came home, she didn't say anything to him about the death of his son. She cooked, she fed him, she went upstairs, she beautified herself, and did what? She had relations with him, which is very difficult for a woman to do considering that she just lost one of her children. But she had to make sure that when he received this, he received it in a way where it would not. Here again, we're talking about hunter-gatherer society. The father's responsible for taking care of the home, taking care of the family. Very critical. Very important that when you give information like that to a man, you give it to him in a way where it doesn't send him off to go do something crazy. So she beautified herself. She had sexual relations with him. After they finished, she looked at him and she said, Ya Aba Talha, أرأيت لو أن قومنا أعار عاريتهم أهل بيت فطلبوا عاريتهم ألهم من يمنعوهم. She said, let me ask you a question. She said, what would you think of a home that loaned another home something and then went back to collect it from those people? Would they have a right to deny them? Meaning if we loaned another household something and then we went to go back and collect what we loaned them, would that household that we loaned it to, would they have a right to deny us what we loaned them? And Abu Talha said no. She said, Ihtasib ibnak. She said, then make reservations because Allah has called your son back. Make reservations and desire your reward from Allah because Allah has called your son back. And Abu Talha said to her, angry, he said, Taraktini hatta talattaqtu thumma akhbartani. He said, you had relations with me and then you tell me this about my son? But you see how calm he was when he received it. She utilized. I'm not saying that she gave him 10, but what I am saying is that something was given to him, and as a result of that, she was able to tell him what she needed to tell him. You guys following me? You see how powerful intimacy can be if you use it in the right way. Women, I don't think that you guys, not you guys in particular, but just women in general, especially young girls, because they give away sexual intimacy, recreationally. It's recreational. It's not recreational when you get older, it's medicinal. You understand the difference between the two? When sexual relations goes from becoming recreational to becoming medicinal. It's used for medicinal purposes. It's medicine to calm him down, to get you a new bag, to, you need some work done on the house. You understand? It's medicinal. Young girls, you're just giving away sexual relations recreationally, which is why, women used to think back in the day that sex was enough to keep a man. It's not. It's not. They'll still walk away from you and tell you as they're walking away, oh, by the way, the sex was really good. But they're telling you that while they're walking because you're using it. And, it takes some time for them to understand that. But leverage your 10. You want something from a man? Give him 10. But 10 should not be given every single time that you have sexual relations. It doesn't have to always be 10 every single time. It doesn't. And that goes for men as well. But men, we don't have that luxury. Because if we don't give 10, we might be made a mockery of. We might be clowned for not, I'll do one more and we'll be done, inshallah. All right?
Excuse me, can you give us all of them?
I'll give you all without the explanation.
Yes.
All right? Number 5, learn how to love him for who he is rather than what he can do for you. Male socialization teaches us that our value as men is in our agency, our ability to provide services. We've seen our fathers doing it. We've seen, our uncles doing it for our aunties, providing services, buying a new car, buying a new house. Every time we see them, they buying something new. And we see our mothers, our aunts, and we see the women in our family happy. So we associate that with, okay, the way to make a woman happy is to provide services, to do something for her. And so we automatically accept this misnomer that our entire worth as men is predicated on what we can provide. And some women have accepted that notion as well. You ask them, what's the main quality you love about your husband? Oh, he's a great provider. Okay, so in the event of the lack of provision, he's not a great man? That's all you see him as a provider? And so we have to understand what our social conditioning has done to us. What our social conditioning has done to us. It has forced men to believe that they are as good as the service they provide, and it has caused women to accept this, that my man is only as good as what he can provide. Meaning in the absence of that, he's nothing. And the Quran, confirms that this is just one of the many aspects of what makes a man great. And that is his ability to provide. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa," that men are the protectors and maintainers of the women. And in the end of the ayat, Allah says, because the men spend from their wealth. And another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about the father taking care of his children. He said, وَالْمَوْلُودَ لَهُ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. And it is upon the father of the child to provide clothing and food based upon what is reasonable. So the provider aspect of being a man is confirmed in the Quran. But it is not the whole man. It's not all that we are. And sometimes it seems that, all of the woman's emotions and feelings for the man is based upon this one particular element. And in essence, she refuses to acknowledge all of the other qualities that he has unless that quality is met first. Oh, you can provide? All right, you can provide. Then that allows me to take the shades off, the blinds off, and see all your other colors. See all the other aspects of you because you've provided. And so it means like in the absence of that provision, I don't even see anything else. And that's wrong. Because that's only one aspect of him. All right? Men desire women who are in love with who they are, even when they're not winning. even when they're not on top. And for men, I'm guessing that it would probably be better for us to lead with our best first, so that our women get a chance to see us in our best space, so seeing us in our worst space does not compromise their outlook on us. Because it's easier for a woman to be patient with a man when she's seen him at his best, because she knows what his potential is, versus a man coming in from the bottom and she's, waiting for, this miraculous jump from nothing to something, sitting around waiting on, the potential that he has. Men desire women who are in love with who they are, even when they're not winning or not on top. If you stop looking at his agency and look at his personality, you will learn to love him for who he is, rather than the small little role that he plays in your life as a provider. Follow me. There's so much more to him than just being a provider. He's funny. He's handsome. All of the other reasons. It's like you saw all of those things before you got married, and then once you get married, all of those things don't matter no more. The only thing I concentrate on is your ability to provide. Man, he's so much more than that. And I think that we kind of, throughout our marriage, we forget about that. You forget about how handsome your husband is. You forget about what he used to look like when y'all first got married, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. You forget about all of that, because the concentration now solely is upon bills and making sure things are paid on time and making sure he's fulfilling his role and responsibility as a provider. He's so much more than that. But we kind of overlook that and concentrate on just being, him just being a provider. Number 4 is be his friend more than you are his lover. Men are cultured through male companionship from the earliest stages of their development. It is, it is through these relationships that boys find, create bonds with men, with boys, that may sometimes last them throughout their lives. And it not only shapes, who they become, but it also creates safe spaces for them to communicate their feelings and emotions that they can't, share with anybody else. You ever wonder why a man is so quick to go and talk to one of his male friends before he talks to you? You want me to tell you why? Because you're not his friend. You have limited yourself to just being his wife. And you don't have to limit yourself. Why can't you be his best friend? And take the role that he's giving to his other friends from high school and college, and you are now a part of that. But you've limited yourself. I'm not your friend, I'm your wife. It's like, well, good luck with that. Let me know how that works. Because you put yourself in a box. You don't have to just be his wife. You can actually be his friend as well, if you didn't know that. All right? And understand something. Those who men consider their friends, they'll let their guard down in front of them, which is why some husbands will share things with me. I know for a fact they would never tell their wives. I know they would never say to their wives. But they feel comfortable enough of sharing it with me because I'm part of the boys' club. Your job as a wife is to get a part of the boys' club. You need that card, that access card, to be a part of the boys' club. You don't think so? Because when you are a part of the boys' club, he's going to share things with you that he shares with his friends. And that's what you want. Is it not? That's what you want. And those who are not a part of his boys' club, guess what? They're on the other side of the wall. He puts a wall up. We've been building this wall our entire lives. All of the people we think that are threats to us, threats to our manhood, threats to, what we consider fun and what we want to do, we shut you out. We block you. And we put this wall up, and we've been putting the bricks to this wall up for a long time. And we have minions who guard the wall. You know who those minions are? Pride, ego, arrogance, stubbornness. These are all our little minions guarding our wall, because we don't want to let that wall down. The only people that get access to us, the intimate side of us, are those who are on the other side of the wall. Your job as a wife is to get on the other side of the wall. Are you comfortable being on the other side of the wall? Are you comfortable being, kept at bay, not able to gain access to the other side of the wall? Some women have been on the other side of the wall their entire marriage, have never even tried to gain access. You say, well, I need you to share with me more. I need you to do this more. Ask his mother how that worked out for him. You don't just get in there like that. You got to earn your way into that. He has to feel comfortable with you. You have to be his friend. Stop limiting your role to just being a wife. There's a wonder that the Prophet ﷺ felt so comfortable when he saw Ancient Jibril in the mountain, in the cave, and he ran home. Who did he run home to? Khadija. He still had best friends like Abu Bakr. He still had best friends like Abdurrahman ibn Auf and all of the other men in his life. Even his own uncle, Abu Talib. Even his own grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, who both raised him, had a hand in raising him. He didn't run home to any of them. The first person he ran home to was Khadija. She wasn't just his wife. Understand their relationship. She wasn't, and the beauty of it is that she was a lot older than he was. Which, for whatever it's worth, I think some women like to marry men that are either their age or older than them. The consideration of marrying a man that's younger than you, it's like, oh, he's inexperienced, oh, he's this. Well, don't you think that will work out in your favor? Not that you're going to manipulate him or anything, but it's easier to kind of deal with someone that's a little younger than you. You might have to be a little bit more tolerant of stuff because he's yet to learn, but guess what? He's going to learn. The Prophet Khadija was 15 years older than the Prophet ﷺ. And look how that worked out. He had a great deal of respect for her. But in this day and time, women wouldn't even consider marrying a younger man. It's like, oh no, I don't got time to be dealing with no young boys. All right, cool. They got to learn some way. They're going to either practice on your daughter, or you can marry them and teach them the ropes, and inshallah that work out for you. One way or another, he's got to learn. Somebody got to teach him. But the Prophet ﷺ, he ran home to Khadija. And the way that, she communicated with him when he exposed to her. I mean, think about how vulnerable he was in that moment. How vulnerable he was. He saw an angel that communicated with him, a creature that he had never seen before in his life, and communicated with him. If he had ran to anybody else and exposed that, people could have said he was crazy, he's lost his mind. There's so many things. Even running home to his wife, there was a risk that she could have said, like, you're losing it. No way, you're crazy. No way you saw that. And the Prophet ﷺ didn't even tell her what he saw at that moment. He just ran home and said, cover me, cover me. And she asked, what's wrong? He said, I think God is humiliating me. He never said what he saw because there's a vulnerability there. If I expose this is something the person going to believe me. Without even questioning what he saw, Khadija immediately began to communicate to him things about himself that would help him process what happened to him. He said, I think God is humiliating me. She said, God would never humiliate someone like you. You take care of your guests. You take on responsibilities that are not yours. You take care of the poor. You keep ties with your family. Or God would never humiliate somebody like you. Breathe life back into him. Because that's what a friend does. That's what a friend does. In many of our relationships, our marriages, someone comes and you see that they are depleted emotionally, and we kind of just step on them and just push all of the air out of them rather than blowing the air back into them. So sometimes as men, we have no one to communicate with. And if a woman can manage to rotate her crowns, because you say you're a woman of many hats, I say you're a woman of many crowns. If you can manage to rotate your crowns from being a wife to a friend, best friend, learn how to master that. There's times when my wife says to me, well, I'm going to tell you this, not as your wife, as a friend. If me and you were best friends, this is the same information I would give to you. I'm not telling you this as a wife. What's the difference? I want you guys to process this for a second. What's the difference between you conveying something to your husband as a wife versus you conveying something to him as a friend? What's the difference between the two? And why is it received differently? A friendship is more honesty?
I don't know. I think you.
So you're saying he's
Yeah,
less
no,
honest?
No,
as a-
I'm just saying you're more open to say certain things to a friend.
Yo.
Even though he puts me in a church, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, okay, you shot from the 3-5. You hit the rim.
I hit the rim. Okay, good. I'll take that.
Anyone else? What's the difference between communicating something to your husband as a wife and stepping out of that role and communicating to him as a friend?
He doesn't feel an obligation.
He doesn't feel like
An obligation.
it's an obligation. Go ahead, elaborate.
So when you tell your husband something as a wife, it almost seems like there's some message that you're saying. You're saying do this or don't do this. You're always telling him what to do. Whereas with a friend, you're just giving them an idea and suggestion that they don't have to.
That they
agree
don't
with.
have. Right, very good. She said that when you convey something to your husband as a wife, sometimes it comes off like it's obligatory, like almost like an obligation. Because you're still in that role, husband-wife role. So it comes off like halal, haram, gotta do it, this is for the sake of our marriage. And so he almost feels like it's an obligation. Versus you saying something to him as a friend, it's almost like a suggestion. Like you don't necessarily have to do it, but I'm telling you this would probably be a better idea. And he doesn't feel obligated. Men, especially men who are stubborn, we don't like to be forced to do something until we are ready to do it. That's just, we've been like that since teenagers, since little kids. When our mother gives us an option to do something, then we'll do it because there's no pressure to do it. But when you force me to do something, I'm going to do the opposite. Simply because I don't like to be told what to, I don't like to be forced to do it. You understand? And so sometimes when you communicate as a wife, it comes off like it's forced, like he has to do it. Versus you stepping out of the wife role and into a friend role, and you saying, I'm telling you this as your friend. He can now process it differently. It doesn't come off as an obligation. So yes, absolutely. All right, anyone else want to contribute to the difference? But that was great, absolutely. And you guys, if you want to get the best out of him, you need to be his friend. When he sees you as his wife, he sees just rules, obligations, and a role. When he sees you as his friend, he can kind of let his guard down. You guys can laugh about things. I'll give you an example. This might not sit well, but I want you to understand men. Men are going to be men, period. Whether they married or unmarried. A woman walks by, he might lose his, sense of religiosity in that moment, and he might look. If he's with you and you're in the wife role, he's going to make an effort, concerted effort not to look in that direction. He's going to almost go against his nature. But because he doesn't want to upset you or offend you.
Oh, there you go.
But if the woman knows that you're a man, and you saw a pretty woman walk by and you look, I'm not going to take offense to that. And he knows that you're not going to, and she can say jokingly, I saw you looking over there. That ain't your type. Leave that alone. You're going to get yourself in trouble. They can laugh about it. It's not a big deal because they're in a friend role in that moment. You see the difference between the two? I'm not giving a pass for men to do that. I'm saying that men do that. That's just reality. It happens. But what I'm saying for you is how you handle that. You can handle that as a wife and pop him in the back of the head and say, Astaghfirullah, brother, don't you think you should lower your gaze? And shame him for doing what men usually do. Or you can make a joke out of it, showing that I'm confident enough. I know that girl is 20 years younger than you. Please, lower your gaze. Do yourself and lower your gaze because you ain't going nowhere with that. That girl ruined your life, boy. You know what I mean? Like you cannot take it so seriously. You understand? That's a friend role versus a wife role. All right? And I'll just run through the last. Men need a woman to be confident. I wish I had time to go through that. Men need a woman to be confident. Why? Because the less confident you are, the more he has to invest into building your confidence, which pulls him outside of his own comfort zone. There's a direct correlation between a woman being unaccepting of herself and her tendency to be overly criticizing of her husband. Because when you are insecure about things within yourself, those same things that you are insecure about, you become overly critical about with your husband. Very dangerous. Number 2, don't write checks that you can't cash. Stop telling the man you don't need him and you're married to him. I don't need you. Yeah, but we're married, so you need something. Stop writing checks. Well, you can just divorce me. And then when he divorces you, so you going to divorce me? Stop writing checks that you can't cash. Stop writing checks that you can't cash. And the last thing is stop telling women your business who don't deserve to hear about your business. If the woman is single, going through her own stuff, you a married woman. You should be talking to somebody who's married, successfully, happily married. Stop sharing your business with women who don't deserve to hear about your business. This grown folk talk. You're not even married. Please spare me the theory. Because for you, it's all theory. For me, it's practical application because I'm in it. And sometimes your women friends can be the greatest contributors to the destruction of your marriage. Wish I had time to go into that as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. I'm sorry that it took me so long, but hopefully it's digested and understood in that time. Jazakumullahu khairan for your time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all. And I hope that some of what was discussed, can be taken home. I like to be practical. So I don't like to just give you theory and it sounds good and you walk away feeling like, wow, that was a great lecture. No, I want you to walk away with tips, tools that you can now go and say, let me try this. Let me see if this really works. And then to implement it and have it work and then send me an email and say, Brother Shadeed, I literally implemented that and it worked like a charm. I've literally had people send me emails and say, listen, I listened to this lecture, I went back and I did X, Y, Z, and it worked. Oh my God, it worked. And I'm like, alhamdulillah, that was what it was for. All right? So it's practical application. I'm not in the business of entertainment. I'm not an entertainer. You have many Islamic lectures and conferences. People travel all around the world, to join these great conferences and lectures, and it's all fluff and entertainment. Not all of it, but most of it. I'm not an entertainer. I'm not an Islamic lecturer / entertainer. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to make you laugh. I'm not here to create jokes and walk away. That's not what I'm here for. I'm an educator. I'm an educator to give you information, to empower you, to bring quality, to enhance the quality of your life, whether personally or in your marriage. That's in your personal life, in the life with your children, the people that mean the most to you. That is my angle. That is my approach. So, inshallah ta'ala, I don't know if you guys have any questions or comments. Sister Amina, thank you for the invite, and thank you guys for coming out. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. Does anyone have any questions? I have some index cards. If you don't want to ask directly, you could write them down. We don't have a lot of time left because we're kind of going over.
So,
No? Everyone's good?
you guys have any questions? If no questions.